Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. Words that are sung by thousands of people at every Welsh sports event going. That's one thing about the Welsh. We really do love to sing anywhere and everywhere. But is this song just a catchy chorus made to pump up the spectators before a match, or have our spirits been unknowingly crying out to God for his guidance and unending provision? Guide Me, O Thou Great Redeemer was written by William Williams Pantycelyn in the 1700s. But the version that we know so well came about when John Hughes wrote the tune Cwm Rhondda in 1905, and the words of the old hymn were sung to that. He was very much inspired by the revival that had not long ended in Wales. But why this song? The Lord had moved with such power months earlier. Why were we now singing about being in the wilderness? The Israelites were in the wilderness for 40 years. They had been set free after centuries of slavery in Egypt, but they couldn't seem to find their way to the Promised Land. However, it wasn't as if nothing was happening. God gave Moses the task of bringing them the 10 Commandments and building a tabernacle to host his presence. The place where they were may have looked barren, but God made sure that they were provided for every day. The Israelites that entered the Promised Land were not the same as those who left Egypt. They learned many lessons along the way. What I wanted to know was, why was there a need for a wilderness? And can these lessons be applied to the Welsh Church today? I spoke to the best man I know to explain these things to me, my pastor, John Powell. So John, something I kind of really want to know is Wales. God has told me Wales has been kind of like going through the wilderness. And I was thinking back to when the Israelites went to the wilderness, and that kind of made me think, why do you think it was important for the Israelites to go through the wilderness?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, basically, if you just look at when you look at the maps and all that stuff, when they crossed over, they were actually in the Promised Land. They were already in. If you actually go there today, it is Israel today.
Yeah.
The desert is. So they stepped out and they literally were they were standing and walking in the promises, but they didn't realize they were in the promises.
Right.
So they probably could have got there in about 11 days. That's what they reckon. They worked out that if they'd have gone en route the way God told them to go, they'd have got there within 11 days. It took them 40 years and 38 years altogether. So it's a wandering about, but they were wandering in the promises. They were in the promises already, but there was disobedience there. So I think that, God would want to take them in the easy route. I think he wants to take us all in the easy route.
Yeah.
But because we don't realize that we're in the promises, we end up going the long route.
Yeah.
And on that route then is all types of things that we're going to encounter. I think there's a lot of things that got to be worked out from us, and I think that's what the wilderness was about, is that working out of who they were, what they were. And certainly when you read Paul's, he said that it was the unbelief, it was those that did not believe. And that unbelief had to be left in the desert before they could go into the Promised Land.
Can you give me a brief summary of what actually happened in the wilderness and what the Israelites had to do before they got to what they thought was the Promised Land?
Oh gosh, well, here's my map, my route map, right? So, I mean, obviously they had to leave Egypt as slaves, and they had to cross over, but crossing over was a baptism, if you like. Mm-hmm. They went through the water. Once, and the idea was, let's go up there in 11 days. But then, of course, they ended up crossing the Red Sea. One of the first things that they sort of come across is those bitter waters.
Yeah.
Right? They ended up, and it said that when God told Moses, wanted to put the branch in it, and it became sweet waters. So all that bitterness that they experienced in the wilderness, it's like, I'm taking that away from you.
Yeah.
And so that's a type, if you like, of of us, a believer, that everything that we went through in the past, slaves to sin, when you come into the promises of God, he takes the bitterness of that away. the wells of water. They went to Elim, I know, and there's an old movement now, Elim, called Elim. But it was an actual place, and it was the wells of water were there. So even though they were in the desert, there was provision.
Yeah.
You know, so again, sometimes we want to make our own sort of comfort. We want to make our own safety net. But God's not into that, really. God wants you to depend on him. And then, of course, you get the abundance. So there was that. You're talking the manna and the quails, right? This is all now before getting into the mountain where God gives his law. This is like they're just walking it out in faith.
Yeah.
Manna and quails. I mean, let's be fair, chicken and chips. What can't go? I mean, you can't forget about that. Plenty of water and chicken and chips, man, right? So, you know, and again, they didn't have to work for it. And it would only last that day.
Yeah.
So God said, go out in the morning, pick it up, and then you sort of consume it, eat as much as you like, gather as much as you like, but don't keep it for the following day. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Yeah.
You can't be riding on yesterday's blessings.
Yeah.
You can't be working on the provision that God gave yesterday. And let me tell you about, you know, this whole thing is about the Welsh and all that, and the Welsh Church and this revival. And so we like to commemorate what was.
Yeah.
And that's not bad to honour it and to learn from it. But God says, hey, that was the stuff of yesterday.
Yeah.
You need to find fresh now every morning. But anyway, so it goes on. The hands of Moses supported, isn't it? When they sort of came against their enemy, it says that his hands had to be kept up, Joshua and the priest, you know, and Aaron had to keep his hands up. While his hands were held up, they prevailed in the battle. When he began to get a bit weak and his hands started to drop, they started to lose.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a bunch of stuff there.
Yeah.
I mean, God grief. Worship, you know, if we can maintain worship, but to maintain worship, it takes support. Mm-hmm. So we got these guys all over the land right now at the piers that, you know, they're in front of sort of cameras worshiping.
Yeah.
You know, to an audience of maybe a lot more than what they get in a little church, maybe. But, you know, where's the support? Mm-hmm. To maintain it, you're going to need support. You're going to need each other to maintain it. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there.
Yeah.
As far as Welsh revival you're looking at, I mean, good grief. I mean, there wasn't support. The radicals were basically, everybody backed off. And when they started getting a bit crazy, like Evan Roberts now starting getting crazy, you know, people were criticising him. People backed off from him and left him stand. You know, he didn't get the support that he should have had. Maybe if he had the support that he had, we'd have seen a greater move of, you know, it was awesome moves as it was, but maybe it would have lasted longer. It would have prevailed more if he had that support had been there. But they eventually get to the mountain of God, where he's going to give them the laws. But he didn't. He gave them more than laws. He gave them the first 5 books, basically, books of Moses. Yeah. And of course, the building of the tabernacle. So from that point on, then, when she reached that sort of bottom tip of Israel, what is Israel today, then they built the tabernacle. Yeah. Now, when the tabernacle was built, the presence of God came upon it. Mm-hmm. Now, they weren't traveling on their own from this point on. They weren't on their own up until that point, but now his presence could be visibly seen. Yeah. In the middle of the camp, the tabernacle. And everybody could see it. So pillar of fire by night, it must have been awesome. No darkness even in the camp of Israel. Right? Yeah. Because pillar of fire by night, pillar of cloud by day. Mm-hmm. When that moved, you move. Maybe the Welsh revival, all it actually did was that the fire moved. But the people didn't. Yeah. It could have been, couldn't it? It could have been, because it was happening. We had a sort of pastor, many pastors come to us from all different parts of the world, but certainly there was one from India, one from South Africa. And they came to Wales, visited Wales for the first time, and they were expecting, because when the Welsh revival went out, they touched their parts of the world as well. Yeah. And that's how they got saved, and their families got saved and handed down. And they expected to come to Wales and still see the Welsh revival. Yeah. They were bitterly disappointed when they could see all these old chapels shut down, where these places of revival. Does anybody come here anymore? No, probably about 20 people. Yeah. So the fire was still there because it had touched all these other parts of the world. But, you know, as far as us, we didn't move with it. I love this. As soon as they moved on from there, it says more quails in this map here, Tabara. And, again, more sort of provision. So the next place was Miriam was she had leprosy because of the rebellion. Yeah. It affected Aaron, affected Miriam. There's a rebellion there. Oh my gosh, we could talk about that for a while. And as far as churches, setups, organizations, not that we have to be subservient to people, but that whole sort of rebellion thing going on sometimes. When there's a call on somebody's life maybe to do something, look, there's plenty of other churches, there's plenty of other supermarkets. You haven't got to just shop in one supermarket, have you?
Yeah.
If that one doesn't suit you, you can go to another one.
Yeah.
But the last thing you want to do is go to the supermarket and start whining in the middle of the supermarket floor that they don't sell something that another supermarket does. You know, because where are they going to go with that? Like,
Yeah.
and that's what happens in churches sometimes. You get people coming to church and, well, look, if you don't like what's going on there, find you a place.
Yeah.
But don't rebel. Don't try and stir up rebellion. We're going to get rid of them, that leadership, and we're going to take over. Because the chances are it's not going to go very far, because it's got to be a call of God.
Yeah.
Right? So Miriam paid the price for that. But however, God healed her. And it was a thing. Put your hand in, right? Put your hand out to leprous, put it back in again, and it's gone. It's a wonderful trick. But and then you got, from that point on, is the wanderings in the wilderness. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just craziness, because this is right underneath now what they regarded as the promised land. This is the fertile part of Israel. Yeah. They're in Israel right now and they're wandering about, but they're in the desert.
Yeah.
And if you just look at the map, they're just going round and round. And they're literally just probably a day's walk or a couple of days' walk from the promised land.
Yeah.
There was like, they sort of invaded their enemies. They get the treasures. And the Lord had given a command, don't take anything for yourself. But Korah, again, rebellion comes in. He wanted to take, he thought, I'll hide this underneath the tent. Keep this for later on. Nobody know. Yeah. And they put all of the children of Israel through this thing where they got to parade themselves before the elders, before Moses. And they eventually fine-tune it down. It's you, Korah. And it didn't go well. It said the earth swallowed him up. He ended up in Sheol, and his family did. When people want to take the glory of God, we talk about it on a Welsh thing. So right, so they get a move of God in a church, or the move of God in a movement, or in a town. Oh, I'll write a book. Right? Come up with a formula. Take a bit of credit maybe for the fact is, this went because we were praying every day, we were fasting, we've got this organized, we've organized it in such a way, we've got this going, and then like God moved, It's like taking some of the glory. Yeah. Taking some of the treasure. And even though it's not a blatant rebellion, really it's pride. And so whenever God moves and his glory is seen, it's his glory. He did it. So God tells them, I'm going to give you a strategy. You're going to go out and defeat your enemy. Mm-hmm. So it's all in the wanderings, aren't they? Yeah. And they defeat the enemy exactly like God said. So the next time the enemy comes against them, they were presumptuous and thought they will go and do the same thing again. Mm-hmm. And they had an absolute clobbering, right? They learned something. They were defeated. They'd never been defeated up till that point. They get defeated. They get routed by the enemy. And they learned a lesson that day. Yeah. Do not presume anything. Yeah.
So for Wales now, have you seen any similarities between the Welsh and the Israelites? What would be like a few things that, you would say?
Let's talk about the song, shall we? A song, innit? Yeah. One of the Welsh anthems, one of the Welsh hymns. Guide me, O thou great Jehovah. Pilgrims through this barren land. Right? I am weak, but thou art mighty. Yeah. Right? And guide me with, I can't remember the words now, but you know the song. Yeah. Bread of heaven, feed me till I want no more. It is a song about the wanderings in the wilderness. Yeah. Right? Led by the fiery pillar, right? Led by the cloud. Mm-hmm. It's all in that song, right? And it's an anthem of us, of our land. It came from the land. Yeah. But it speaks of another place. Mm-hmm. And I've actually led worship right down where God gave the laws to Moses, give him the pattern the pattern of the tabernacle. And one of the songs that the Lord told me to, and I led, it's only a short, like about 170 people there. We're out in the middle of the desert. There's no PA. There's just the fiddle player, drummer, me and the guitar, and basically at the bellow. You know what I mean? The old style. And I said, I want you to sing that song to honour the people who founded our church. Yeah. Right. And Frank was called a great singer in Israel, but he never went to Israel, and it was to do with replacement theology. The Lord told me I wanted to put that right, so I used that song. Yeah. Because it's a Welsh song. Yeah. And to honour, but it speaks of that wandering. It speaks of, so straight away you've got an anthem, you've got a song for it. Yeah. But then if you want to see the outworkings then of what happened post revival, it does mirror a lot of the wanderings in the wilderness, where God's going to say, okay, well, all we got to do is just have another prayer meeting. So all we got to do is just get together again, like everyone got people together. And they did that, and it didn't work. There's been several prayer movements since, and it haven't really taken off. Like, it haven't really brought about that revival that they were looking for. And you can see it there, presumptuousness. Not waiting for the strategy of the Lord. In other words, we know what to do. We need to pray and we need to fast and pray, and that's no. You need to ask the Lord what to do. So so there are loads of things there, you know.
When the COVID-19 pandemic hit and the nation was under lockdown, like so many of us, I struggled with the isolation and the feeling of hopelessness. The state of my mental health was declining, and I didn't know what to do. Being restricted to travelling 5 miles and living in a small Welsh town, there wasn't many places to go, but I could come here. This is the place where I could easily find refuge in God. I would sit here on this bench and wonder at his creation. Seeing the small valley towns nestled in between the rolling Welsh hills made me realise how big he was. I was no longer bound by the restrictions man had put me under, and I was viewing life from a different perspective. I wasn't stuck in the wilderness of my mind anymore. I was focused on his promises. There have been many prominent Welsh figures in the early 20th century. Seth Joshua, George and Stephen Jeffreys, to name a few. But what I really wanted to know was, who are the ones in Wales that in the last 50 years have been focused on his promises, when everything around them seemed barren? It turns out that not unlike the Israelites, there have been those who use tents to facilitate worship and encourage them with the word of God. So I met up with a few of them. According to the Wales 2021 census, less than half the population now consider themselves Christian. One of the areas with the fewest amount of people who call themselves Christian was Blaenau Gwent at 36%. So looking at this from the outside, it may seem that there is no hope. But situated there at the head of the valley in Ebbw Vale, one woman has been faithfully following the Lord by pioneering tent missions around Wales and other parts of the UK for 40 years. Evangelist Marilyn Harry.
Well, I was working away in Birkenhead near Liverpool, and I was privileged to work with the wonderful evangelist Paul Epton that moved in Signs and Wonders. And then unexpectedly, my dad had an accident and died. And so I came back home to Wales. And during that time, I reconnected to my local church in Porth in Rhondda. And I've always been a bit of a gatherer. And so I had a group of young people, and we were praying and seeking the Lord. And during that time, an unusual thing that happened for me, I saw a vision. And I saw a vision of a big white tent. And I knew in my heart it would seat 500 people. And by a great miracle, I didn't have any money or anything. I basically owned a 500-seater tent, 500 chairs, everything for a tent mission, and the Lord provided a wonderful team. And we brought 12 churches together in the Rhondda, in Treherbert, and every night the tent was packed. And the first night, 46 people came to Jesus. So we took it all over, really. Many, 2 places to mention. Outside Wales and inside Wales. And on one occasion, actually, we took the 500-seater tent to Derbyshire, and the Holy Spirit fell, and we were there for 16 weeks, and we saw 1,600 people respond to the gospel, accompanied by amazing miracles of signs and wonders. Of course, the greatest sign of wonders is salvation, isn't it?
So why tents? What is the importance of having a movable structure that allows people to be acquainted with the presence of God where they might not have had a chance otherwise?
I think that God uses tents, going back to the Old Testament, the tabernacle, and we know the presence of the Lord, and it was movable and the people went with it. But also I love how that Moses, he had the tent of the meeting, didn't he? Where the presence of God would come. And also then that Joshua, he loved to be in the presence of God in the tent. So I think it's movable. It can go where the people are. And I love the fact that God still uses tents today. I love tents. I love the freedom of it. And I just love it, to be honest. I think it's a great opportunity to be able to go where people are, because when you do a tent mission, you're actually going to the person's locality. For example, we are based here in a real lovely building in Ebbw Vale, but we then, just before COVID, we took our 200-seater tent to a needy housing estate called Rasa. And over the years, we have done so many tent missions, to be honest with you. I couldn't tell you how many, where we've taken 100-seater, 200-seater, bigger tents into the local villages. Like, for example, with Rasa, a small community, we'd have 300 people every day. So for them to come to where you are is more difficult. But, you know, the message of Jesus is to go. So I believe God still wants to use tents today. And what I've noticed is there's a lot of young evangelists now who are using tents. They are absolutely great. And I can honestly say, without exaggeration, that using the tents over many, many years, we have seen thousands of people come to Jesus Christ.
One couple who have found that tents have been central to their ministry are Wade and Claire McLennan from Cardiff. They had been holding their conference Arise for several years, but when the COVID-19 pandemic struck and churches could no longer meet in buildings, God showed them a way to continue.
Arise, it's multifaceted. It's one of the things we try to do is to see that the fivefold ministries, apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, teachers, that they play well together on the same platform. I think over time, Wales has had an abundance of pastors, teachers, as far as ministry goes, and we've not been built up in the areas of the evangelistic, the prophetic, and the apostolic, which is missions. And, you know, when revival came in the past, that's what we became. Wales became a sending nation all over the world, and missions was huge. When there was a move of the Spirit, they wanted to take it out and couldn't keep it to themselves. And I think that there's been a lot of the input where it's just been come in, sit down, and be quiet and be taught, rather than getting up, taking it out, and having the congregation, everybody kind of involved. And so we want to see those fivefold ministries really play well together and without competition and issues on, whose ministry is what, but to see them built out so that the people can take the gospel and their relationship with Jesus into everyday life and in the streets and workplace, in their homes.
So we started Arise in 2019. We had 3 mini Arises, and then we rented a church building to have a 3-day event in a church. Then in 2020 we went on to lockdown. So as a church we prayed, and a lot of people started seeing tents, outdoors, big tents, big top tents. So we decided that we couldn't go into a building, so we're going to take Arise outside. So that's where Arise first started.
We're almost forced to do it because of the pandemic. And I think that there's plans that God has for us that we couldn't see, and sometimes He kind of has to corner you so that there's only one way to go. And we were in a building before. Then when all the buildings shut down, we were like, we still had this event and we still believed the Lord was saying not only to do it, but He said increase it. So He went from 3 days to a week, and He said make it free. And well, where? We had a time of fasting and prayer with the church, and people were having visions of a tent, and other people were having the word tent.
It's one thing to get a prophetic word about a tent, but it's another thing to step out in faith and buy one. Not just a small one either. But that's what they did, and God provided them with £19,000 to buy a 1,500-seater tent. They also increased the conference to 14 days. They were going all in. So last year, my church, Church on the Move, had the privilege of taking part, and here's what happened.
It's been fantastic. The amount of work that was needed to get all the marquees up, get everything up. We had a group come in from Chicago that just came in to serve. If they hadn't been here, this one behind me wouldn't have gone up the way it has. And so we're just amazed at watching what God has done. But there's a real anticipation in the spirit. And the worship this morning, there's an anticipation in the air. And the word, we're going through Hebrews in the morning. We're seeing those things. Last night we saw people healed and set free. Yeah, the ball's rolling and it's going to be picking up speed. So just amazed, really.
People can come here, they will meet with God, they will experience the fire of God, they'll be refreshed. When people get tired and weary, it's a good place just to come and be refilled and just to, be with brethren, people who are like-minded, and just go back out into the nations, into their churches. To make it contagious would be awesome.
Wales had such a history of revival, and we can feel it when we got here. But this has just been something where the miracles, signs, and wonders. There was deaf ears opened by a little girl. There was, even last night, there were people throwing canes down and walking and dancing. And the cool thing that we've been processing is the miracles that are happening and the healings that are happening. They're not hyped up. It's just happening.
The greatest takeaway from this year's Arise, there's multiple levels on that one. I found that seeing crutches and canes left over and having to have to clean those up, I'll take the cleaning job for that one. That's just amazing. The deliverance. One of the ladies that came in, she was involved in tarot card reading and mediumship, and she came in, she got prayed with, and she received Christ, and they prayed for freedom for her, and she hit the floor and was like as stiff as a board, and all of a sudden something went, and she got up, she was changed. The smile, the joy, getting to baptize three generations, a baptism where his grandparents, parents, and children get to baptize 3 generations of people. That was amazing.
Well, I think it's absolutely wonderful that people are using tents today with the message of Jesus. And I think what Wade and Claire did with the Rise in Cardiff was outstanding in that 1,500-seater tent. And I was greatly encouraged.
So I think relationships have been built, have been established. And, we're normal people who love Jesus. And it was a really relaxed environment. So I think there was a lot of benefits that people were just able to come, enjoy, and to relax and to hear. I think it was more important to hear Jesus.
For the Israelites, they were wandering, but there was still a place promised to them and for them. What they didn't realise was that they were already there. Sometimes we don't fully realise that where we are is where God has called us to be. But there is a process that we need to go through to claim what is already ours.
Oh, definitely. I mean, 2 or 3 are met in my name, there I am in the midst.
Mm-hmm.
Promise.
Yeah.
But we turn up in church waiting for something to happen.
Yeah.
So we don't go there with that expectation of it's happening, because where you are and where I am and where 2 or 3 of us are met, he's there.
Yeah.
Now, if he's there to do something.
Yeah.
So we get this all... I mean, in the Pentecostal church that we got saved in and came into Christianity through.
Yeah.
It'd be awesome, because you'd have the time of worship. So you'd have the sort of quiet things. You'd have the sort of all that thing about, well, you gotta sort of consider the Lord, consider all this stuff, and it'd be quiet worship songs and building up to it. And then of course it'd get more boisterous, and by the end of the meeting, it'd be awesome. People would be swinging off the chandeliers and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, but I think that whole approach to it, really, where they were sort of, well, we need to find our feet, It was almost like they're finding their way. And by the end of the meeting, they found their way, and the presence of God was there, and God was doing stuff. But hey, it's time to go home now.
Yeah.
It should have turned that the other way around, really. It entered his gates with what? Thanksgiving. Let's get boisterous at the beginning. Let's go in as if, not as if we're waiting for God to show up, but we know he's shown up. So we can be exactly like the children of Israel. They were walking on ground that they own today. It's desert. It's a stunning place. I mean, you've got to go there. But they were walking on that promised land and not realizing that they were walking on the promises, just wandering about. So much like us.
Yeah.
He's my healer, my provider, he's my savior. How much more does God got a promise to us? I'm building my church, gates of hell can't prevail against it. If you lift me up, I'll be enthroned upon your worship and your praise. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
And we don't realize we're walking about, to us it's a desert, but to the Lord it's not. You're on the promises already.
We were just looking at the map just a bit earlier on, and the way that the Israelites actually travelled, there could have been an easier way for them to get from Egypt to the Promised Land, but why did they have to go a bit further? What was the reason?
It's crazy stuff, again. But of course, they went across the Red Sea. It's a baptism.
Yeah.
It's a change. It's a changing over. It's a crossing over. Exactly like the believer. You've got to cross over, right? You were a slave. Now, anyway. And then, of course, he takes them down to the very tip, to the very bottom of Israel. That is Israel Day. Alat by there, right down by the desert. Which is a bit, why didn't you just go straight across? So even if they were going to go the quick route, it still seems a bit far out the way.
Yeah.
Now, the route that they could have gone was the route which Abram took. The route that, say, children of Israel came out of the first time, Jacob and all them.
Yeah.
Joseph. And later on, you had Mary and Joseph had to take Jesus, flee to Egypt. And they actually took a route that was close to the northern coast.
Yeah.
Straight in. And it makes you wonder, if they crossed the Red Sea, why didn't they just follow the northern route and get straight in?
Yeah.
But God wanted to take them his way. Now, there's a bunch of stuff there. He wants to do it his way. Why? Because there's a set steps. Why, sometimes if you look at your life, well, why did God take me there? Why was I doing that in that season of my life? Trust the Lord, he's doing something. It doesn't look like anything's happening at the moment. It didn't look like much was. In fact, they were wandering in the opposite direction from where the promises were, from where the fertile ground was. But God took them down, learned all his stuff, got them wandering about a bit. And then, to top it all, because they could have just crossed over on land.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He took him into what is Jordan today, right? Onto that side, which is the east side of the Dead Sea.
Yeah.
And the River Jordan. And he took them that side, and they had to re-enter the Promised Land, but again, by crossing over water. So, they crossed over the first time, they messed up, wandering about a bit. But then to make sure that they're entering the land and they're crossing over from one thing to another, they're going from death to life, he made them do it again. And so the priest at the step into the water says the Jordan River backed up.
Yeah.
It sort of piled up, so the waters did. Then they crossed over into the Promised Land. So it started with the baptism. They messed up, and that before they entered in the Promised Land, there had to be a baptism again.
Yeah.
A crossing over. So so it seems crazy why God would want to do that when it was just a quick 11-day journey straight in. However, in that 40 years, they were basically a nation of slaves prior to this. They had a slave mentality.
Yeah.
By the time they went into the Promised Land, they had an army. They had a different mindset, completely different. That old generation that died off in the desert had gone. You had a new generation waiting to go in with Joshua, ready to possess the land.
So that's something that we may need to look ahead to as a nation, is another crossing over, another baptism.
Yeah.
Because, I know that some of us have a different mentality of those gone by, so we're ready to go into the Promised Land.
I jolly well hope so, because it's
It's about time.
being that generation. It's almost like, I don't know, I feel like I'm 63 this year, and and started off this a long time ago with when praise and worship, when me and my wife was in church, was 3 hymns at the beginning. You had the choral singing, which happened before the meeting. So what we would know today is worship songs, where they'd have them before the meeting, because those are not proper songs. And it'd be the organ and the piano, and we did have a drum in the Pentecostal church, but and that's what we came into, and it was very formal. I loved it at the time, but it was very formal. But you realise a lot of that stuff as well is that formality is safety. And sometimes there was the odd meeting that would get out of control when the Spirit moved in. He's a tinker, mine, isn't he? the Holy Spirit creeps into these meetings sometimes and just messes things up. And when he did, it was awesome.
Yeah.
And it sort of pulled away from, but you could tell it was that unbelief then. That whole crossing over speaks of this. You were leaving the unbelief behind.
Yeah.
And a generation that didn't believe. So it's no good dragging it. You're not permitted to drag that into the promises of God. You've got to leave it in the barren place. There's a new mindset going in, and that mindset is to take the land, to take the giants out, to get that land becoming fruitful again, to bloom again. And so that's where we are right now. Thank God there's a lot of stuff. I say your generation, my daughter's generation, I haven't got a lot of this baggage, you know what I mean, that we had coming into it. However, you can gather your own baggage, mine. So beware, as that generation did. But they eventually went in, left the unbelief behind, and went in. And I believe that's what we're in that process right now. In fact, we might already be there, walking around on the promises.
Amen.
Yeah.
We can't be happy with an event. We have to be only satisfied in Him. And I think God's been preparing a lot, allowing things to die. Where sometimes our traditions, sometimes our histories, our even pride from what has been, and it has to go so that He's our central joy. Things that are planted deep have to have roots so that the future can be sustainable and those changes can come.
As I've been having conversations with many people about this topic, it has become very clear that although God does use the temporary to change us, He does this so that we can be established in the permanent. We are now moving into His promised land, which means that we will have to behave very differently from how we did before. What does this mean for the Welsh Church, and what does it look like? Join me next time as I discover the importance of being rooted and established and how that will change a nation.